She's the sanest, crazy person you've ever met.
Jodi Arias looked like the girl next door.
He made me feel like a very beautiful person on the inside.
A beautiful young woman who'd become the center of the national spotlight. In a sensational trial, accused of murdering her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander.
Well, a fatal attraction. Definitely a fatal attraction here.
Testimony captivating the country.
This is about obsession, white hot sex, rage.
The warnings friends had given him before that fateful night.
I said, Travis, I'm afraid we're going to find you chopped up in her freezer.
The crucial evidence caught on camera.
Even as the homicide occurred, the camera is continuing to click photographs. It's almost like having somebody videotape your murder.
In September 2006, under the soft lights of a Las Vegas conference room, two lives collided with the kind of spark that felt written in the stars. Jodi Arias was 26, ambitious but restless, a woman drifting through life's currents without an anchor. Then came Travis Alexander, confident, charismatic, a man who seemed to have everything figured out. He was the kind of person who filled a room without trying, a motivational speaker with a boyish grin and the charm of someone destined for success. To his friends, Travis was a symbol of discipline and faith. To Jodi, he was everything she had ever wanted: stability, admiration, and validation wrapped into one magnetic man. When they met, Travis was instantly drawn to her beauty. The way her eyes held both warmth and mystery. She was quiet but intense, a listener who made him feel truly seen. Their connection grew quickly, almost too quickly. Within weeks, they were spending long nights on the phone, whispering promises, dreams, and confessions into the early hours. But beneath the flirtation and chemistry, there was an undercurrent, something darker, unspoken, and fragile. Jodi became the center of her own world the moment Travis entered it. And for Travis, the excitement of her attention was intoxicating. They lived in two different states, but distance didn't stop Jodi. She followed him to church events, joined his social circles, and even converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. His faith, his world. She wanted to fit perfectly into the image he valued. Their relationship quickly turned intense, passionate, addictive, but also unstable. They were lovers one week, enemies the next. They couldn't let go, even when they tried. To the outside world, it was love. To those closer to them, it looked like obsession. Travis confided in friends that Jodi was becoming too attached, too invasive. She was always there, calling, texting, showing up unexpectedly. He told them she hacked into his social media accounts, read his emails, and even slashed his car tires after one of their breakups. His friends warned him, "She's dangerous, Travis." But love, or perhaps lust, curiosity, and guilt, pulled him back every time. They couldn't stop the cycle: break up, reunite, break again. It became a toxic rhythm, the kind that feeds on emotion and thrives on pain. In public, Jodi smiled, radiant, calm, devoted. In private, she began keeping journals filled with heartbreak and longing. She wrote about her love for him, her jealousy, her insecurities. The pages were filled with a desperate kind of hope, the kind that turns dangerous when reality refuses to match the fantasy. By early 2008, Travis was ready to move on. He told friends he wanted a future, a wife, children, and a life built on stability. But he admitted, almost shamefully, that Jodi still had a hold on him. "She's like a drug," he once said. "I know she's not good for me, but I can't seem to quit." In the months that followed, Travis began dating other women. That's when Jodi's behavior shifted from obsession to something darker. She moved closer to him, driving hundreds of miles to Mesa, Arizona, under the guise of staying friends. She smiled in his photos. She acted calm and supportive. But inside, her heart was breaking, and rage was quietly taking root. To Jodi, losing Travis wasn't an option. If she couldn't have him, no one else would. And as the sun set on the desert outside Mesa, something inside her began to fracture, quietly, invisibly, beyond repair. By early 2008, the passion that once consumed them had turned into something twisted, a game of emotional warfare. Jodi Arias clung to what was left of her connection with Travis, convinced that if she just proved her devotion, he would choose her again. But Travis had begun to change. He was pulling away, seeking purity after guilt. His faith, once blurred by desire, was calling him back to the man he wanted to be. He'd confide in friends that his relationship with Jodi had crossed lines: moral, emotional, spiritual. "She's beautiful," he'd admit, "but she's dangerous. She's not the person I should marry. Jodi knew it too. She could feel the distance, sensed the hesitation in his messages, the way his eyes no longer lingered like they once did. Still, she couldn't accept it. Instead, she doubled down, calling him, visiting uninvited, showing up at his house in the middle of the night. Sometimes he'd let her in, sometimes he wouldn't, but every time, she made sure he remembered her, the way she laughed, the way she loved, the way she made him feel both desired and uneasy. When Travis told her it was truly over, something inside her snapped. She quit her job, packed her belongings, and moved from California to Mesa, just a few streets away from him. To her, it wasn't stalking. It was love, commitment. But to everyone else, it was alarming. Travis's friends started noticing. His tires were slashed again. His private conversations mysteriously leaked. His new dates began receiving strange, anonymous messages. He told his friends, "If anything happens to me." Jodi did it. He said it jokingly, but the unease was real. Meanwhile, Jodi was unraveling in silence. She started recording videos, writing in her diary about karma, betrayal, and the pain of rejection. Her words read like a storm brewing. "No one will ever love him like I do," she wrote. "If I can't be his, then I'll be his forever in another way." Still, she tried to appear normal, smiling for photos, chatting with friends, pretending she'd moved on. She even told people she was starting over. But her actions said otherwise. She continued to track Travis's movements, access his phone records, and sneak into his house while he was away. And Travis, caught between fear and guilt, didn't know how to fully cut her off. Their bond had become an addiction for both of them. He'd tell her to stay away, then answer her calls. He'd block her number, then see her again. Their relationship had become a battlefield of control, and every word, every glance, was another step toward destruction. By May 2008, Travis had met someone new, a sweet, church-going woman named Mimi Hall. She was everything he said he wanted, kind, grounded, safe. He invited her to join him on a work trip to Cancun. Jodi found out. The discovery burned like acid. In her mind, Mimi wasn't just another woman. She was a threat, a symbol that Travis was truly letting go. That month, Jodi called him repeatedly. Some nights, she drove by his house and watched his lights turn off, imagining what was happening inside. She told herself she needed closure, that she'd talk to him one last time, end things peacefully, finally move on. But deep down, she wasn't driving toward closure. She was driving toward something irreversible. On the evening of June 2, 2008, she rented a white Ford Focus and set out on a long road trip from California to Arizona. The car was clean. Her phone was off, and she had borrowed a gun for protection. No one knew exactly where she was going, not even Travis. What followed would become one of the most haunting crimes in modern American history, a story of love, control, and the darkest corners of the human psyche. The desert air was dry and heavy on the night of June 3, 2008, as Jodi Arias crossed the Arizona border. She had been driving for hours, alone, her car filled with everything she thought she might need: clothes, a camera, a few personal items, and a borrowed .25 caliber handgun. To anyone else, it was just another road trip. But inside Jodi's mind, the journey was far from ordinary. Every mile brought her closer to the man she couldn't let go of, the man who had once promised her the world and then took it back. By the early hours of June 4, Jodi arrived in Mesa. The streetlights flickered as she pulled into Travis Alexander's quiet suburban neighborhood. His home, tucked neatly among rows of identical houses, looked peaceful, unaware of the storm about to break inside its walls. She knocked softly at first. No answer. Then again. Finally, the door opened. Travis stood there, half asleep, half confused, his expression somewhere between irritation and familiarity. He hadn't expected her, but he also didn't turn her away. That was the strange gravity of their connection. No matter how many times they ended, the pull was always there. Hours passed. Neighbors later recalled hearing faint laughter, maybe conversation. To anyone outside, it seemed harmless. But inside, the atmosphere was tense, charged, the kind of silence that comes before a scream. That day, Travis had plans. He was preparing for his upcoming trip to Cancun with Mimi Hall, packing his luggage and finalizing work emails. Jodi followed him through the house, like a shadow. She smiled, asked questions, tried to make small talk, as if pretending this was just another visit, another night together. At some point, she picked up her camera, the same one that would later expose everything. She asked him to pose, to smile, to relax. He agreed. Maybe out of habit, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear of confrontation. The photographs began innocently, Travis on his bed, lying in relaxed poses, laughing softly. Then, later, he moved to the shower. Jodi kept snapping pictures, the soft sound of the shutter echoing through the tiled bathroom. Each click was like a countdown. At 5:29 p.m., the final image was taken. It showed Travis standing under the shower head, his expression unreadable, his eyes glancing downward. It was the last moment of his life ever captured. What happened next was chaos. In the next few minutes, maybe seconds, the house became a scene of horror. Travis was attacked first with a knife. He fought back, trying to defend himself, but the assault was relentless. He was stabbed again and again, nearly 30 times. His throat was slashed from ear to ear. And then, in a final act of overkill, he was shot in the head. The walls told the story in silence. Blood smeared across the hallway, handprints on the walls, drag marks across the floor. It was a crime of rage, not passion, personal, violent, and desperate. When it was over, Jodi stood over his body. The man she once called the love of her life was gone. For a long moment, she didn't move. Maybe she was in shock. Maybe she believed it was over, that she had finally silenced the rejection, the humiliation, the ache that had eaten her alive for months. Then she began to clean. She wiped surfaces, washed her hands, threw the bloody sheets into the washing machine. The camera, the one she used to document his final moments, was tossed into the machine too, as if she believed the evidence would wash away. When she finally left, the house fell silent again. Only the hum of the washer remained, the last mechanical sound before stillness. Outside, Jodi got into her rental car, started the engine, and drove off into the night, leaving behind a crime so brutal it would haunt the nation for years to come. Days passed, and silence filled Travis Alexander's house. The blinds stayed shut, the mail piled up, and his phone went unanswered. For a man known for his energy and constant connection, the quiet was unnatural. By June 9, 2008, his friends were worried. Travis had missed a conference call, a church meeting, and several messages from his trip companion, Mimi Hall. He hadn't shown up at work. He hadn't answered the door. The unease grew heavy, the kind that gnaws at your gut before logic catches up. That evening, a group of close friends drove to his home. The sun had long set, and the suburban streets were bathed in eerie stillness. When they arrived, they noticed something, his car still parked in the driveway. That was the first bad sign. They knocked. No answer. They called his name, louder, desperate now. Still nothing. The front door was locked, but one friend remembered the keypad code. When the lock clicked open, a chill crept through the air, the kind that warns you something inside isn't right. The house smelled faintly of decay, a metallic odor mixed with something sour. They stepped inside, calling out again. Silence. Only the sound of their own footsteps echoed through the hallway. One of them, a close friend named Zach, pushed open the bedroom door. The bed was stripped, and on the floor, they noticed faint stains. Then, they followed a thin trail of dried blood leading toward the bathroom. The door was slightly ajar. When Zach pushed it open, the scene on the other side would haunt them forever. Travis Alexander's body was slumped in the shower, lifeless, his skin pale against the tile. Blood covered the walls, the floor, even the mirror. The brutality was unimaginable, the kind of violence that only comes from deep, personal rage. The friends stumbled back, screaming. One dialed 911 with trembling hands. There's blood everywhere, she said, her voice cracking. He's dead. He's in the shower. Oh my God. When police arrived, the house was sealed off like a tomb. Crime scene tape fluttered under the porch light. Detectives began their work, photographing, collecting, documenting. The scene was overwhelming, chaotic, and soaked in evidence. In the washing machine, investigators found a camera, waterlogged, but still intact. It would later reveal the final hours of Travis's life in chilling detail. Every frame told part of the story, the smiles, the shower, and finally, the blurred images of violence. The autopsy confirmed what the eyes already saw: 27 stab wounds, a gunshot to the head, and a deep slit to the throat. It was overkill, personal, emotional. The investigators' minds immediately turned to one question. Who could have done this? They started with the obvious. Travis's friends mentioned one name over and over, Jodi Arias. They said she had been obsessed with him. They told stories about the stalking, the break-ins, the jealousy. One even recalled Travis saying, "If anything ever happens to me, Jodi did it." When police called Jodi, she sounded calm, too calm. She said she hadn't seen Travis in weeks. She said she was shocked and heartbroken, that they'd remained friends even after their breakup. But her story didn't sit right. The calm tone, the rehearsed sadness, the inconsistencies, all of it felt off. Detectives traced her phone records, her rental car logs, and her credit card charges. The evidence began to close in. Gas cans bought in California, strange mileage on her vehicle, a missing handgun from her grandparents' home, and photographs on that damaged camera that put her in Mesa on the day of the murder. The illusion was falling apart. To the world, Jodi was still playing the grieving ex-girlfriend. To investigators, she had become the prime suspect. And as the news broke of Travis Alexander's murder, a nation became fixated on the young woman at the center of it all, the pretty photographer with the haunting smile, and the lies she told to cover a crime born out of obsession. From the moment detectives brought Jodi Arias into custody, the performance began. She smiled politely, spoke softly, and acted bewildered that anyone could think she was capable of such horror. Inside the interrogation room, the air was cold and sterile. The walls were bare, the camera was rolling, and Jodi sat cross-legged in her chair, as if she were simply waiting for a friend. Her voice was calm, her words carefully chosen. "I would never hurt Travis," she said. "He was my best friend." But detectives weren't buying it. They had evidence, hard, undeniable evidence, and they wanted to see how long she could keep up the act. They showed her the photos from the recovered camera, Jodi smiling in Travis's bedroom, Travis posing in the shower, and then the blurred, horrific images taken seconds before the attack. Her face drained of color, but she kept her composure. "That can't be me," she said at first. Then, almost as if catching herself, she shifted tactics. "Okay, yes, I was there, but there were intruders. They came in and attacked us. I barely escaped." The story was absurd, and the detectives knew it. 2 masked intruders? No forced entry, no missing valuables, no other footprints? It didn't add up. Still, Jodi spoke with conviction, weaving details into her story like threads of a lie she had told herself too many times. When detectives pressed harder, her tone changed, from calm to defensive, from denial to faint indignation. Days later, she changed her story again. This time, she claimed self-defense. She said Travis had attacked her in a moment of rage, and she'd fought back to save her life. The problem was, the crime scene told a different story, one of control, not chaos. The sheer number of wounds, the attempt to clean up, the shot to the head after death. It all pointed to cold calculation. By the time her trial began in January 2013, the case had become a media storm. Headlines splashed her name across every outlet. Talk shows debated her guilt. Cameras followed her every movement. The way she smiled, the way she fixed her hair, the way she looked at the jury with soft, pleading eyes. To some, she was a monster. To others, she was a woman scorned, pushed beyond reason. But in court, the evidence was brutal and undeniable. The prosecutor, Juan Martinez, painted her as manipulative, deceitful, and dangerous, a woman who planned the murder with precision. He played her recorded interviews, showed the photos, and read her journal entries out loud. Her own words became her undoing. Jodi took the stand, an unusual move for someone accused of first-degree murder. For weeks, she talked. She described her relationship with Travis in vivid, sometimes shocking detail, exposing their intimacy and their fights. Her voice trembled at times, but her tone remained rehearsed, deliberate. When she cried, the tears seemed to come from effort, not emotion. Travis's friends and family sat in the courtroom, watching in disbelief. They saw her spin story after story, dragging the memory of the man they loved through the mud to justify what she had done. The public fascination grew darker. The trial wasn't just about guilt anymore. It was about image, sex, and obsession. People debated whether Jodi was a victim or a villain. But as the evidence stacked up, the blood, the photographs, the gas cans, the lies, the answer became painfully clear. When the verdict finally came, the courtroom was silent. The jury found her guilty of first-degree murder. Some jurors wept. Travis's family held hands, trembling. Jodi stood still, her face unreadable. The death penalty was on the table, but after 2 mistrials during the sentencing phase, the final decision was life in prison without parole. As she was led away, reporters shouted questions. Jodi smiled faintly and whispered, "No jury will convict me. You can mark my words." But they did. The courtroom lights dimmed, the reporters packed up, and the world moved on, or at least tried to. But for those who knew Travis Alexander, nothing would ever truly return to normal. His house in Mesa became a symbol of everything that can go wrong when love turns to obsession, when desire crosses the line into destruction. Jodi Arias was sent to Perryville Prison in Arizona, where she remains to this day. The woman who once dreamed of being a photographer now lives in a cell, her name forever attached to one of the most chilling cases in modern history. Yet even behind bars, she never stopped talking. She gave interviews, wrote letters, and maintained that she wasn't the monster the world thought she was. But her words carried no weight anymore. The evidence had already spoken louder than anything she could ever say. For Travis's friends, the pain lingered like an open wound. They remembered the man who had once filled rooms with laughter, who wanted to inspire others, who loved deeply, maybe too deeply. In every photo of his smiling face, they saw the warning signs they had missed, the moments they couldn't undo. The tragedy became more than a story of murder. It became a psychological study of control, manipulation, and obsession. Experts analyzed Jodi's behavior, her charm, her lies, her calmness in the face of brutality, and found patterns common among those who live in emotional extremes. She wasn't insane, they said. She was deliberate. A master of performance who blurred the line between love and possession until it destroyed everything. Even years later, the fascination with Jodi Arias hasn't faded. Documentaries, podcasts, and interviews still revisit her story, not because people admire her, but because they can't fully understand her. How does someone go from lover to killer so easily? What breaks inside a person to make them believe that death is the only way to hold on? In the end, the story of Jodi Arias and Travis Alexander isn't just about murder. It's about control. The way love can twist into something violent when it becomes about ownership instead of connection. It's about warning signs ignored, boundaries crossed, and emotions left unchecked until they erupt into tragedy. And maybe that's why it still grips people so tightly, because it forces us to look at the dangerous edges of passion, the places we all recognize but rarely acknowledge. Jodi's final words before sentencing were soft, almost rehearsed. "I love Travis," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound real. "And I never meant to hurt him." But those words, like so many others she spoke, were empty. Because love, in its purest form, never ends in blood. The camera flashes outside the courthouse faded. The public's attention shifted to newer scandals. Yet, the story remained. A chilling reminder of how obsession can masquerade as affection, and how even the most ordinary relationships can hide extraordinary darkness. Travis Alexander's memory lives on not as a cautionary tale, but as a tragic testament to what happens when one heart loves freely and another loves to destroy. And somewhere, in the silence of her cell, Jodi Arias still writes, still convinced that her version of love was misunderstood, still clinging to a story that only she believes. Because even in the end, she never let go. If you love chilling crime stories like this, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel for more chilling stories.